Now we are done with this particular Redux Toolkit book related application. Now let's start with the RTK query. So we'll learn about RTK query and why do we use it. So what is the RTK query? RTK query is a data fetching library. So data fetching and caching tool. So this is inbuilt into Redux Toolkit. So you don't need to separately install this. So if you are familiar with React query or time stack query, you will find it very similar. So React query or time stack query is more advanced, more powerful. But this React RTK query is just a simpler version of that React query. So RTK query is a version which you can use with Redux Toolkit. So you don't need to separately install a React query. If you are already using Redux Toolkit, you can get started with RTK query. So there is no need of using a React query if you are using Redux Toolkit. So that is the benefit of using RTK query. So it provides caching ability. So what is the advantage of caching? So when I refresh this particular page, you see loading. So you can see that there is no loading. The data is already loaded here. So you see that instant data. So that data is not loaded again. So whenever I go here and if I refresh, you can see there is a blank screen displayed and then you get that data. So you don't have that data to be displayed. So if you use caching, that data is already fetched and it will be displayed immediately. It will not be refetched again. So if the data changes behind the scenes, that tool or RTK query or React query refetches that data, but you will not see the loading screen here. So that is the advantage of RTK query or React query. So RTK query is a simpler way of using React query when you are working with Redux Toolkit. So let's see how to use this. So here we have created simple book management app, but we don't have any API right now. So this is a data fetching library or tool to work with data fetching and caching functionality. But we don't have any API here right now. So everything, all the books that are added, we are directly storing in the component itself. So when we refresh the page, all the data is lost. So whatever books we have, we don't have. So let's say if I have one, two, three, and if I add a book, you can see this data is displayed. But if I refresh, you lose all that data. So we are not storing this information. So let's set up a server, backend server that will serve as a REST API server. So we can make get API request, post API request, delete API request, any type of request we can make that. So we don't need to use Express.js or Node.js to do that. There is a really useful NPM package, JSON server. So you can use this JSON server anywhere, front end, back end, anywhere you can use this. And you can install this using npm I or install JSON server. So we are not using directly in the code. So if you see here, all these things we are directly importing. So UUID, React Router DOM. So we are directly importing this. So that's why you use this or install this as a dependency. So everything we are installing as a dependency, all these things. But this JSON server, we need to install this as a dev dependency. So it's not issue if you install this as a dependency, it will still work, but it is not required as a part of dependency. So when you deploy your application to production, only the dependencies get installed. Dev dependency will not get installed. So your build will be faster and you are not unnecessarily installing extra things. So whichever things which you are not directly importing in the code, that you should not install as a dependency. It should always go inside dev dependency. So even though it's mentioned you should install this as a dependency, in our code we are not directly using. So we should install this as a dev dependency. So let's install this. So what we will do is, let me close all of this. So we already have this book application, so I will not touch that. So what I will do is I will create a copy of this and we can rename this. So I can rename this to RTK. So let me import. So here I have created a new folder which will have exact same functionality of that book app. So here we need to install that. Let me go to Redux Toolkit book app RTK. So now we are inside this particular newly created folder. Now inside this we need to install the JSON server. So let's install JSON server. So this has to be installed as a dev dependency. So if we open the package.json, let me open that quickly. So here we have dependency and dev dependency. We need to install this as a dev dependency. So --save dev is really useful. Now you can see it is installed. So if you check the dev dependency, you can see JSON server is installed. Now, to how we can use this? So to use this, you need to create a db.json, which is an object, and you need to define what you want to create REST API for. So post, comments, or whatever you have. We have books here. So let's create db.json file. So let me close this. So inside this particular folder, let me collapse all. So inside this, alongside this package.json, we can create db.json, not inside src folder. You can also create inside src, but it's usually you can create it outside this src folder because it is not a part of the actual code that you are writing. So here it will be an object and we will have books array. So it will be in books array. So what will it contain? It will contain an object, so array of books. So ID will be, so this is JSON. So make sure everything in double quote. So keys has to be in double quote. So ID, one thing you need to remember in JSON server, the ID is automatically generated. It's UUID. So if you are adding some initial books, it has to be strings. You cannot keep it number. So you can keep it number, but in the API, whenever you access, you will have issue. So always make sure the ID will be string. So let's say ID, then what we have title, book title. So whatever name we have given for this particular thing, ID, title, let's go to add book, ID, title, author, and price. So title will be, we can say first book. After this, just random right now I am adding, so we can see that data. So we can say first book author. We also need to add price. So price will be, so it is an integer or float we can consider. So 1200 point, let's say 50. So this is one record of that particular. So we have one book. We can also add a second book author, let's say 500 or 400 point, let's say 50. Make sure you type it correctly. So now this is the data. Now I want to expose this as a REST API. So inside the package.json, we can add a new script. We can say start server. And here we can say JSON server dot slash db.json. So we are inside package.json. Alongside that, immediately we have db.json. So that's why we are saying dot slash db.json. Now let's start the server. npm run start server. So whatever name you have given here, you have to use exact same name to start the server. Now you can see you can access this endpoint localhost 3000. So let me access localhost 3000 slash books. You can see now you get correct data. So whatever data you have added inside this db.json is displayed. So this is completely responsive. So if I remove one record and save this and come here and refresh, you can see you immediately see that data. If through the code, whenever we add that, it will again get reflected. So this is the simple way to create an backend API server. So you just need db.json. So name you can keep it exactly same, and you can define books, authors, or if you have profile information, you can define. So it is not required to be an array always. You can keep it object also. So you can have multiple things inside this particular object. Now we are done with this. Let's write a code to get this API. So we'll set up RTK query. So inside SRC, so you don't need to install anything extra. So along with this particular Redux.js toolkit, you automatically get RTK query. So inside Redux, let's create a API folder, and inside it we can create API.js. So if you are using TypeScript, you can name it api.ts. Now we need to import something from add Redux.js toolkit slash query slash react. So from this, we need to import create API. So let's call it, so we are working with book, so I can call it books API equal to create API. And let's add the curly bracket, press control space, so we'll get suggestions. This is very important. So now we have base query and endpoint. So these are two mandatory things. So base query, so by default, whenever you make API call, so this RTK query uses fetch API. So there are two promise-based API. One is fetch and another is Axios. So you can use any of this. But by default, this create API or RTK query uses fetch. So you need to use fetch base query. So this is again from the same package. Fetch base query, and for this you need to pass the base URL. You can see you need to pass an object with base URL. So what is the base URL of your particular application? So this is our base URL. So this is the complete URL. So this is our complete URL, and base URL will be just localhost colon 3000. So this will be common for all the types of API that you are writing here, and you just specify the endpoint in each of the respective API. So after this, we need endpoints. So for this particular endpoint, what we need to do? So if I mouse over this endpoint, you can see it's a method. So it's a method, and you need to define an object using builder syntax. So here we will get a builder parameter, and here you can return an object, and this particular object you can define whatever methods you have. So I want to get list of books, so I can call a function like get books. So it's an object, so this is an object where I have one property of get books. So for this get books, so you need to use this builder dot query. So there are two things. So first is query and second is mutation. So whenever you want to get something, always you need to use query. And whenever you want to update, delete, or whatever you want to do apart from getting, then in that case you can use the mutation. So here we are getting the book, so we'll use query syntax. And here inside this again we can provide the query. So this query will be function. And what will the end URL? So this localhost colon 3000 slash books. So the final URL will be this slash books. So here you can just specify slash books. So this is your final URL, or this is how you write that code. So don't worry if this looks complicated. Once you get started using this, it will be easy for you to understand. So here one more thing is from this function we are returning object. So as we know, whenever we have an arrow function where we are returning object, we can simplify this. So if I have get user function arrow function where I'm just returning an object, so I'm just returning object with name my. So I can simplify this. I don't need to write this extra code. So I can do the exact same thing using arrow function. Now I can just open the round bracket, and whatever thing I want to return, you can implicitly return. Just paste this inside the round bracket. So these two things are exactly same. So you don't need to add a return keyword, open the new line. So that is not required. So similarly, here we are doing the same thing. So from arrow function, we are returning object. So what we can do is we can remove this opening bracket, just that round bracket, and directly add that what do you say, object notation. So this is the common way you will see. So code in the everywhere you will see code will return like this. So you will not have an object open and then return keyword. So that is like an extra code that you are writing. So instead of this, this is how you will see everywhere it's written. So now this is the books API we have created. Now let's export this. So here we can say books API. Now, if I control space here, you can see we are what we are getting. So if I type here use, you can see you are getting a custom hook. Use get books query. So the name get books, it is exactly matching. So only use is added and query is added. Because here we are calling it get books. If I say get books data, then if I do use get, if I do control space, you can see you get name get books data query. So whatever name you are giving will be exact same name, you will get the custom hook. So this books API automatically gives a custom hook whose name exactly matches with it. Use get, it is capitalized, get books query, and as it's a query we get the query. If it's mutation, you will get mutation. Now we can export this and we can use anywhere which we want. So inside the app component, we can go here, and here we can add code to get that list. So let's go to list page. So inside list, we are getting the list of books here. So let's use that custom hook here. So I can say use get books query. Let's import this and what it returns. So if I print this result, let's print that result so you will understand what it contains. So let me close all other things so we will not have confusion. So this is our API where we are exporting this, and inside this we are using this. So let's refresh. So we need to start the server. So this backend route, make sure it is still open, open a new tab, and let's run, go inside this particular Redux folder, then Redux Toolkit book app RTK. Now let's start the server. So make sure your JSON server is still running. This should be in separate tab. Now, if I refresh, you will see that application is started correctly. Now, what we are doing, we want to get the data. So here, if I go to list page, you can see we are getting error warning middleware for RTK query at reducer path API has not been added. So what is happening here? So whenever you use RTK query or define this create API, we need to add this inside the reducer. So inside the store. So if I go inside the store, so let me show you here. So here inside Redux, we have store. So inside that we have store.js. So this is the reducer that we have. So inside this, you need to register your own reducer for this particular API. So here you can add square brackets and you can use the exact same name. So books API. So let's export this books API also. So we can directly use it here. So you can say books API dot reducer path. So you can also print this what it contains. So if I want to see, let's say path equal to books API. So books API dot reducer path. Suggestion is not coming, but sometime it might happen. So if I refresh, you'll see what is that reducer path. So here, let's refresh this page. You can see path is API. So by default, whenever you create this particular API, its path is API. So whenever by default you use this create API, the path is always API. You can always change that. So there is a reducer path property. Here you can change books API or whatever you want to change. But I don't want to change this right now. Let me keep it as it is API. Now here this will be API and that will be dynamic. So what happens if you want to manually add this reducer path? You don't want to specific let's say hard code that particular API. So we can use this particular property directly here. So it will be always dynamic. So you can use the ES6 or dynamic property syntax. So here I can say books API dot reducer path, path, and its value will again come from books API dot reducer. So whatever this books API we have, it also has a reducer. So if I type RED, you can see it has reducer and reducer path. So that reducer we are using here. Let's save this. And along with this, you also need to add middleware. So if I search for middleware, you will say that get default middleware. So to work with the caching, you have to add the middleware. So middleware is important. That handles all the caching, revalidation, or getting the data, updating data. All this is handled using this particular middleware. This is very important. If you don't add middleware, the caching will not work. So along with this, you have middleware. So if I type here, you can see you have middleware. This is a function. So let's copy this. So we'll not make typing mistake. And here instead of logger API dot middleware. Now this is how you set up. So inside this reducer, you have to add that reducer path and we will add middleware. Now you will not get that error. So previously we are getting that middleware for RTK query has not been added. So if I refresh this particular page right now, so we need to save this. It is not saved. So now if I refresh, you can see you correctly get the result data. So what this result contain? So where, let me remove this part. So where we are using result inside the app component. So we are using get books query and inside this we have data property. So you can see we have two books available. So the data of that particular use custom hook automatically comes inside the data property. So this is the actual books. So we don't need these books now. So we can directly destructure the data property and we can call it books. So this is the entire result.data, and that we are renaming it to books. So now we are already using books. Let's save this and let's see refresh. So we are getting result not defined. So let's remove this result and refresh. We are getting again error cannot read properly undefined reading length. So what is happening? So whenever you are using get books query, the books will be empty. So whatever data is coming will be undefined initially. So if I type data and print the books, it will be undefined initially. So it will always be. So whenever you are using custom hook, the books data will always be undefined. You can see it is undefined. And later, once you get that data or API is successful, then it will be updated with the updated or received data. So if it's undefined, you cannot use length property or you cannot use map method. So what you can do is you can add here conditional check. If there is no books or it is undefined, then you can return null here. So now if I return null and refresh, you can see there is no error and we are correctly getting that data. So this is important. So instead of returning null, you can also display loading message if you want to display loading. But make sure to add this. If you don't add this, what will happen? You need to add optional chaining or add a conditional check. So if books exist, then only check books dot length. Here, if books exist, then only checks books dot length. So if I save this and refresh, so let's save this and refresh, you can see it still works, so we don't have any issue. But you are adding extra code here just because books is undefined. So anytime you want to do some operation, you always need to add this. So instead of this, what you can do is you don't need to do these things. You can directly use that particular condition. If books does not exist, you return it early. So your extra code will not be needed. So if I refresh this, you can see it still works. So that's how you are getting the data. So you can see we are correctly getting first book and last book. So this is all coming from the db.json. So if I remove this particular data and refresh this, you can see you correctly get that data. So whatever data you have inside db.json will be reflected here. So if I refresh, you again get that data. So that's how you can get the data. Now let's add the delete for that. Let's also add some margin for the table. So we have table, let me add styling here. We can also add class, but for simplicity, I will add styling here, margin top, one area. So you can see there is some mark. So we have this particular table now. Let's add a delete button. So here, let's add a th, and here I can say delete. And for this, we can add a button. So again, buttons from React Bootstrap. So let's add this button from React Bootstrap, and here I can say delete. Let's save this. You can see now we have delete, but this is too big. So let's style this. So we can say size equal to SM. So you can learn all this inside the React Bootstrap, which we have already seen previously. So you can just search for the component which you want. So let's search for buttons. And you can see buttons has different variants. Danger is there, that is red. And you can add various sizes also. As input, there is also size, various sizes. You can see size is large, size is small. You can add these different sizes. So for this, size is small is enough, and for the variant, we can say danger. So if I save this, now it will look better. You can see we have delete button. So whenever we click on delete, I want to delete this particular book. So let's write an API for deleting that particular book. So we already have, so let me open the Postman. So we get book. And it will be get request and the API will URL will be this. So if I paste this here and send it, you can see 200 OK is coming and data is also getting displayed. So this is the data that we are getting from the API. Now similarly, let's add API to delete that particular any book. So let's rename this delete book. So we want to delete a individual book. So the URL will be exactly the same. So it will be delete request, and we want to also provide the ID. So we have one, two. So this ID will be used. So JSON server has that API where you can directly provide the ID and that book will get deleted. So you just send that delete request book slash two. So whatever ID, let's say I want to delete this second book. So you just provide ID of that particular book and let me send this. You can see now we are getting 200 OK. That means successful, and whatever you have deleted, you get back. So if I again hit that get books API, you'll see that second book is deleted. You can see second book is deleted. If I want to delete first book also, I can pass ID of one, and that book is also deleted. So if I go here, you can see it is deleted. Now you can also add get books, and now let's add the add book also, that is remain. So I duplicate this. And here I can rename this to add book. So it will be again same URL. Now it will be post request, and in the body we can send that data. So select raw and make sure you select here JSON, and here you can provide the data. So what we need with this title, so we have deleted. Let me add that in the db.json. We bring back. So we need ID, title, author, and price. So let me add this. inside the add book. So let me beautify this. So ID will be, we already have this first book. So let's add second book. And let's say third book. So ID will be 3, third book author, and let's say 500. Now I can send this API. So if I send this API, this will be added. So it's a post request. We are adding the book. So if I come here, you can see the book is added correct. And we correctly get the ID. So you actually don't need to pass the ID. ID is automatically generated. So if I add fourth book, and let's add that fourth book, and let's say 1000. Now if I again send this, you automatically get a unique ID. So if I come here, you can see ID is automatically generated. You don't need to manually add that. So this ID is always a string. Remember that, otherwise you will get error. So this data you can see automatically updated. Now we can integrate this add and delete functionality directly in our application. So let me save this, add book, save this, and now let me go back. Let's close this. So where is our application? So let's go to API. So here we have get books API. Now let's add the add book functionality. So again, it will be add book. So while adding, we need a builder dot mutation. So for getting only you have query. For adding, updating, deleting, you have mutation. So for this mutation, again it will be query, and let's define a function. So during fetch, so as I said, this always uses fetch based API. So if I want to manually send a fetch request, how do I send that? So I will be sending like this. So I will be sending like this. Then for this particular fetch, I will be passing, let's say, method. Method will be post, and then I will define the body. So what is the body? I will say JSON dot stringify and whatever data I have. So that's how I pass. Similarly, here also you need to do that. So we need to specify what is the method. It will be method post, delete, or whatever you have. We cannot directly pass this. So you need to convert this into an object. So here you can return an object, and it will have method, or I can say URL. So URL will be like exactly same. So it will be slash books, and the method, you can see if I do control space, we will get suggestion. Method will be post. And what we need, we also need the body property. So body will be whatever data you are passing. So whatever data you are passing, you can access this as this particular parameter. So here, remember that you don't need to add JSON.stringify, that is automatically handled by the RTK query. So you just pass the data, and this is how you can add a book. Now let's use this. So here you can again export this, use. So if I do control space, let's see what we get. So you get use add book mutation. So the name will be add book, and this is a mutation. So you add this mutation and use here. So now we can use this while adding the book. So where we are adding? So inside the app component. So inside the app component, here we are adding the book. So let's use that mutate. So here you can use const. Let's first directly use add book mutation. So what does this return? So inside book list, this query returns an object with the data property. There are also other properties also, we'll see that, but it returns an object. But in this case, mutation returns an array. So just like use state hook, it returns an array that you can destructure using array syntax, and it will always be a function that you can manually call. So we are adding book, so I will call it add book only. You can call it anything. So this is just a name that you can use to call that particular function. So here we don't need to dispatch. You can directly call the add book function, and whatever data you want to pass, you can pass that. So inside this particular API, we need the data that to be added. So you can directly pass that title. So here we don't need to create an ID because that ID is automatically generated. So that is a good thing. So let's save this, and we'll be passing this particular add book. So now when we call this add book, this will be added in this API will be called, and it will be added in that particular db.json. So here also again it's an object, so we can simplify this by adding it round bracket. So this is a common way you will see everywhere, directly added in the round bracket. Now we are done with add book. Where is the API? So here we are done. Let's verify this. So if I refresh, so you will have 3 books, first, third, and fourth. Let's add one more book. So let's say 10th. So 10th book author, let's say 350.70. So let's click on add book. So here you can see in the network tab if there is any error. So let's open network and clear everything. When I click on add book, you can see this is successful, but we don't see that data added here. So what is happening? So if you see book 10th book is added. So if I open db.json, you can see 10th book is added, but on the UI I don't see the table. I don't see. So we are passing this data in the response also. We are getting it's 201 success. But why we are not able to see that data? That is because the data is cached. So that is the advantage. So you don't see the refresh. So loading functionality you will not see. So the data is cached for 1 minute. So by default, this particular RTK query caches data for 1 minute. So if I want to see that data immediately, you need to invalidate that cache. So you need to say that I am done with adding, updating, or deleting. I want to refresh that data. So in that case, you can add some tags. So inside this particular API, you can if I just type tag, you can see you get suggestion. So always use auto suggestion. You will not make typing mistake. So alongside this base query, you have tag types. So you need to define different tags. So we are working with books. So I will write capital B, capital books, and inside this get books API, you can define some tags. So if I again do, you can see provide tags is there. So provide tag. So here you need to provide a tag that you want to update. So for this getting books, I will give name of books. So this is the multiple tags you can have. So I am working with profile, so you will have profile. Here I am working with expense, you will have expense. So this is in general all the tags you have. And for individual API, you will define a books separate tag. So this is a books tag. Now once I'm done with the adding the book, I want to invalidate this particular API. Like I want to refetch or recall this get books API. So whatever tag you have given, you can again provide that tag. So here inside the alongside this particular query, you can again type tag and press here. So you can see control space, you will get invalidates tags. Which tags I want to invalidate? I want to invalidate this books tag. So now after the add operation is successful, we are invalidating books tag. That means we are again calling the gets books API and we will have that refresh data. We will not have the cache data. So immediately if you want to get that data or clear the cache, you can invalidate that particular tag. So let me refresh and we can try it again. So here we have fourth book. Let me delete the fourth. So here we don't have delete functionality. So let's delete from here. So I will delete this. You can see now we have only two data. So first book and third book. Let's add second book. So I will go to home. I will add a second book. Now you will see that it's added immediately. So second book author and let's say 78.32. So if I click on add book, you can see you immediately see that second book added. So you get that 201 data success. So data is correctly added and now you are again refetching. So you again make get API request for this. So you again get that updated data. So whenever you are using RTK query, data gets cached and if you immediately want that data, you need to invalidate the tags. So these tags are defined. So in general, all tags you can define here. And for individual API, you can provide a tag. And whenever you are done with adding, updating, deleting, you can invalidate any specific tag. So if you are working with profile, you can add a profile also. So I want to refetch two things. I want to refetch books as well as profile information. So you can do like this. So you can provide this from a separate. So here I have only books, so I'll keep it as it is. But if you have multiple things, you can specify that in the tag type. So always use a control space and type tag, so you will get suggestion. You will not make typing mistake here. So these tag types, this is provides tags and it is invalidates. So there is S. Don't forget, it's not provide tag, it provides tags. So that's why I always use suggestion. So you will not have issue in. Otherwise, you will waste hours in debugging. So now this add book is done. So let's call this add book or we are calling. Yeah, we are already calling. So add functionality is working. Now let's add the delete functionality. So here I can write delete. book. So again, it will be mutation. So builder dot mutation. So it will be query. So whatever I want to delete. So if while deleting, I want to pass the, let me click. So while deleting, I want to pass the ID that I want to delete. So I can get that ID here, and here I will return URL. URL will be exactly same, slash books. Method will be delete. So you can see method is delete here. It is not post or put. So let's delete. And we also need, here we don't need to pass any body. The body is not there, only the URL will be there. So here the URL will not be slash books, it will be slash book slash ID. So let me use template literal syntax, slash book slash dollar of ID. So this is how you specify the delete book API. You don't need a body here. So now we can call this delete book inside the list. So where is our delete button here? On click. So we first need to export this. So delete book. So use delete book mutation. Now I can use this mutation in any of the component. So let me use it here. Well, again, it is mutation, so it returns an array. Let me import const and I can call delete. So you can call it anything. You don't have to call the delete book itself. So you can say delete book function. Like that also you can. So now whenever I click on delete, I want to delete. On click equal to, I'll just call this particular delete book function. And while deleting, you need to pass that ID. So here, this particular mutation, you need to pass that ID. So don't forget that. So here, while calling, I can pass the ID. So ID is already coming for individual. So one more thing is when you click on delete, so let me go back. When you click on delete, you should not directly delete. So user might mistakenly click on delete. So always ask for confirmation. So here I can use should delete is equal to window dot so the JavaScript API dot confirm. So here I can say, are you sure you want to delete? So I can use template literal syntax book with title. It's a double quote, and here I can say title. So we are asking, are you sure you want to delete the book with title date? And if it's true, so it will confirm will return either true or false. So if it's true, I can delete that. So here I can call that delete book API function. And let me check if I have imported that delete book. Yes. So it is imported. So we are using from the iteration. So let's refresh this page. So right now we have three books. So if I open db.json, we have three books, first, second, and third. Now let me delete this third. So when I click on third, delete, you can see, are you sure you want to delete book with title third book? If I click on cancel, it is not deleted. So let me clear. And if I click on delete and OK, you will see that the API is again made third book is deleted. Let me check. We can see third book is deleted, but again, we don't see that data reflected. So again, it's a caching issue. So inside our API, once we delete, we need to invalidate again the books. So here I can say invalidate tags books. So make sure you use the exact same capitalization. So once this is deleted, we will again rephrase that. So let's refresh here. Now let's try delete. So if I delete the first book, click on OK, you can see it is immediately deleted. So we send the delete request and we also send the get request after deletion. So if I delete this also, you can see no books are added. So if I go inside db.json, there are no books available. I can always add some. So first book, first author, and here 34.20. So let me clear this and click on add book. You can see book is added successfully. So it's added and we are again fetching that. So that's how you can use this particular add book, get books and delete books. Now we are done with the basic get, post, and delete functionality, add book functionality. But what about error handling? So what will happen if the server is down or there is some error? So right now we are running this server, JSON server. If I stop this JSON server and the application is still running, and if I refresh this page, you will see that we continuously see the loading. You can see now the API is failed. So whatever JSON server API is there, it's failed. If I check the console, you can see a localhost 3000 slash books connection refused error is coming. But we still have loading here. So user is not knowing what has happened. So we don't have error handling right now. So it's very important whenever you do use await or you are using these APIs, you have to add the error handling also. So let's go to the app component. So wherever we are using this list, so this is main. So inside the app component, we can go and let's see what we are doing here. So this is for getting the list of adding the book. Now, if I go to components and book list, here we are getting the list of books. So if there is some error, what we are doing? We are just displaying the loading. So until there is no book, we are just displaying loading. So this is not correct. So if I see this get books query API, so this returns by default data which we have already seen. Along with this, there are a couple of other things. You can see if I do control space, there is error, is fetching, is loading, is success. So there are different flags or property using which we can identify if there is some error or if loading is going on. So instead of not books and then displaying loading, so we can check if is loading, then only display this. So here we will destructure is loading, and if it's loading, then only will display loading. So let's save this and let's see what happens. So if I refresh this, I will see loading is displayed and then we see blank page. So we are not displaying that loading for now because now we are getting error, cannot read properties of undefined. So whenever you have such errors, it's very important you should have all the error handling. So if there is also another flag is error, so using which we can identify if there is any error or not. So what is happening is loading is right now. So if I print this is loading, let's see what value it contains. So why we are getting this error? So for that you can log this value and we can easily identify what is the exact issue. So is loading is true initially while making API call and then is loading is false. So if is loading is false, we are coming here and here we are checking books.length equal to 0. So now books are initially undefined and you are trying to access properties of books. So again you need to add books and books.length. So which is not good. So what you can do is if there is an error, you can add here. If is error, then we can display error message. So again, return paragraph error while getting list of books. Try again later. So now if there is an error, we will directly return that error message and let's style this. So we can say text red and do we have CSS for this? So let's add CSS styling. Color will be red. So we can make this a bit less red. Now inside the book list, we are using this. Let's see what happens. So if I refresh this particular page, you can see you now correctly get error while getting list of books. So this is good improvement. Let's add some styling of margin also. So margin top bottom 1 rem and left right auto. So there will be some spacing. So we are getting correctly the error message. So the page is not breaking. So this is fine. Now if everything works, let's start the server. So if I start the server and let me access again, in that case, you will correctly get that data. So initially you will see loading. Why loading? Because again, we are using that is loading flag. So this is good improvement. Now let's do the same thing while adding that particular book. So not here. Let's go to app component. So here we are adding that particular book. So now here we are using use add book mutation. So we are not using query here. So whenever you are using query, you will get the loading is error directly. So we are getting object here. So in this case of mutation, you get an array. So array with first is the actual function you can call, and second is an object. So inside that object, you get again the same property. So again, you can check if error is loading. So all these things you can again check. So if I click on this particular thing and click on add book, if there is any error, we can display error message here. So let me copy that exact same thing, error while adding book. Try again later. So this all looks good. Is loading where we are using is loading. So we are not using is loading. So let's remove that. And if I refresh, this all works. Now let's go to home page and add one book, test book, test author, and let's say click on add book. You can see this works. Now if there is any error, any error, let's see what happens. So I have stopped the server. Now let's add one book here. Second book, book author, some value. You can see you are getting error while getting list of books. Why we are not getting error while adding, so we are getting error while loading, so we are redirected to list page. So what is happening is when we click on this, no matter whether successful or not, we are always redirecting to list page, and there we are getting error. So this is not good thing. So what you can do is, if this add book mutation is not successful, you should immediately display error message. So how we can do that? So if I mouse over this add book, you can see if you need to access error or success immediately after mutation, you can chain unwrap. So for this particular add book, at the end you can add unwrap. So this is a function, you can just call this. Now you can await this. So I can add await here, and if you add await, you need to declare this function as async. Now what will happen? Next line of code will not execute if it fails or it's successful. So as we are using await, always make sure to add try catch. So all the code should go directly inside the try catch. So let me add that. So whatever code you have will go inside try, and inside catch will display the error message. So only if this is successful, there is no error, this code will execute. Otherwise, will display this code will execute. And here we are already checking if there is any error. In that case, we are displaying error message, error while adding book. So this will solve our issue. So let me delete this. So this was the old code. Let me delete, and let's try it now. So let's go to home page and refresh. So right now, let's see which are the different books we have. So here again, we have error because we have stopped the server. So let's do test book, test author, and 4.2 add book. You can see error while adding the book. Try again later. So here we are losing the form data actually. So what you can do is, instead of returning immediately, you can display that error message above this form. So here we can check if is error, then display this error message. So this is better. So we'll not lose the data that we have entered. So inside the form, if there is error, we'll display this error message, and all the data will be as it is. So form data will be as it is. So if I refresh, and now let's try test author, test title or test book, test author, and let's say 20. You can see now we correctly get error while adding book, and the data is not lost. So user can check what the error, or you can fix that error. So if everything is working fine, you will be able to add this particular book. So let me start the server again. And now let's try to add this book again. So when I click on add book, you can see this is successful and test book is added. So this is all working fine. So it's very important how you are doing error handling. So let me remove this console.log. This is add book. Now let's go to list and let's work on the delete functionality. So book list, and here where is delete? So delete book function. So we are calling this, and here again we don't have any error. So the server, if server is stopped, you will not be able to delete that. So if I click on delete and click on OK, you can see you are getting error while getting list of books. So we are again refetching, so we are invalidating. So again you are getting list of books error. So this should not happen. We should display like error while deleting the book. So always remember, whenever you are adding this add book, you can add await and just make sure you add unwrap. So whenever you are using await, always try add that in try catch block. If this fails, catch will execute. We are not doing anything. But if the API fails, we are already having that error handling. So if this add book API fails, we are already getting the error, and we are using that to display the error message. Similarly, here we can do the same thing. So here we can use await, and here I can write unwrap. So let's move this into separate function. So we need to make this async function. And it's always, if you have a lot of code, then it's always good to create a separate function for that. So here, let's create a new function, and I'll delete. Let's add that function async. Let's add code here. Let me remove that extra bracket. Now we can use this handle delete here directly. So on click, we are calling this handle delete function, and inside handle delete, we are checking it. Now we are using await, so we are declaring this function as async. And if we are using await, we should wrap that code. So we can wrap this entire code or just await call inside try catch. But let's wrap this only in try catch because this confirm will not throw any error. So just around this particular function, we can add try catch and let's print that error. And wherever we are using this, from where we are using here, we can get that is error flag. So is error, and if there is an error, we'll display that error message here. So we'll not return that error message initially, otherwise we'll not see the table. So let me wrap this in a fragment so we can have side by side multiple things. So here again, let me copy that is error while, we can say what is this error while deleting book. So this is error we are having only one in this particular file. So here also we have is error flag while getting the list of books. So is error we are throwing. So here let's rename this is error to some different name. So right now what happens is if we keep this and refresh, you will see that identifier is error has already been declared. This is coming on line number 8. So what is happening? We already have is error. We are again creating new variable. So let's say is delete error. We'll rename this. So if it's delete error, then only we'll display this error while deleting the book. And if it's normal error, then we are displaying error while getting list of books, which is correct. So if I refresh here, you can see error while getting list of books. This is correct. Now let's go to books. Let's start the server. So you will get list of books. Now let's stop the server again. And now if I try to click on delete, you can see title is not defined, book line number 34. Let's see what's the issue. 34 here. Oh, we need to pause the title now. Previously, we directly have access to that. So now handle delete and we can pass the title. So for this handle delete, we are passing title and inside that we are getting and ID also we need here. So whenever you have more than one parameters, it's always good to convert that into object. So if something you want to add extra parameter, you don't need to just add comma separated values. So you can change that order also. So now while adding, I can just pass ID and title. So the order does not matter. So destructuring happens by the property name. So here we are saying ID, the title and ID. You can change that order also. So here I can say ID and title. So it will still work because you are destructuring by the property name. So while passing, I have this object which has this title property. So no matter where you are using this title, it will always work. But it's always good to specify properly. So you will not have any, you can say confusion. So let's save this and let's try to delete this. So let's again start the server and let's refresh this particular page. You will get that data. Let's stop this and now let's click on delete. Okay, you can see now we are getting what happens. Again, we need to have await. We are awaiting unwrap. So it should have function call. So make sure you call it like a function. So let's start this server again. And let's stop this again. And if I click on delete, now you should have that error. What is happening? Connection refused, is loading false, books while deleting. So if it's deleting, here we are getting the error, delete book error, and we are also having error while getting. So let's check delete function. So this is inside the book mutation, delete. So invalidate tag. So here we are invalidating tag. So it's going to that particular page. So what is happening right now is whenever we go to this particular API, so API.ts, so we already have this invalidate tag. So no matter this API is successful or not, we are always invalidating. So what do you mean by invalidating? So we are invalidating in delete also as well as in add book. So what do you mean by invalidating? So invalidating means we are refetching this data, so get books data, because we are invalidating books and we have given provide tags of books. So we are again refetching the books data no matter whether that delete operation is successful or not. So we can't do anything here. So what can we fix this? So how can we fix it? So to fix this, you need to remember that the data which is coming from the API, we are using RTK query. So it caches that data. So when you refresh this particular page, so let me start the server. So let me start the server and let's refresh. So we have this data. So once it is fetched, that is cached for 1 minute, like 60 seconds. So we already have that cache data. We don't need to again refresh that data. So what you can do is here we can add extra condition. So here, if there is error and there is no books available, so we are already fetching books. So if there are no books available, then will not display this particular error message. So if books are available, will not display this error message, then we already have that error message available, is delete related error. So it will come here and wherever we are using is delete, this message will get displayed. So let me refresh and we can try it again. So we get this data. Now let me stop the server. And if I click on delete, click on OK, you can see now we are failing, but we are not losing that data. So we are correctly getting error while deleting the book. So what is happening? So here previously we are not having this particular condition. So it was always the invalidating. So during invalidate, we'll get that error and it was always displaying this error message. So let me save this and let me show you again. So, and if I refresh this, you will get that particular data. Now I will again stop this. Now when I click on delete, what is happening? We are deleting that. So if I go to api.ts, so we are calling delete. So no matter whether this is successful or not, invalidating will always work. So it will try to refetch that data and during refetch, it will fail. So during refetch, we are refetching it here on the list page. So you will get error and you will display this error message. So if I click on OK, you can see you are getting error while getting list of books. So we are showing that particular error message. So this is the exact error message we are showing. Now what we added extra condition. So if there are no books, then only will display. That means there is no data cached. So no books means there is no data coming from that particular hook. So there is no cache data. In that case, only will display this error message. And by default, we always RTK query always caches that data. So this condition will not fulfill, it will not come here and will display that error message directly here is delete error. So while deleting this error will come and so this error will always be true. So it's still true, but this condition will not be successful. So it will not display that error message. So that is very important. So is error is not becoming false. So if I print this and let me show you again, let me refresh. So here you can see is error, you can see is error is false, is loading is also false. Now if I start this server, if I refresh, so now this is working. Let me stop this and let's click on delete. Click on OK. You can see is error is still true. So there is error while fetching that data, but we don't have that condition. So we have extra condition here. So it will not go here and it will directly display error while deleting that book because the delete error will come as true. So here is delete error. If I print that particular is delete error property value, you will see that its value is true. So if I click on delete, click on OK, you can see is delete error is true, is error is true. Both are true. But now we are only using is delete error. So that's how you can fix this particular issue. So you cannot stop invalidating. There is a way like you can add a function here instead of array, you can add a function and there is error, we can only return null or empty value. But instead of changing here, it's always good to have this clear structure without having some extra condition. All the error handling should be inside this particular component. So you can see we have a lot of code here. You can also move all of this code to the custom hook. So let's do that. So if I delete this. We have app component also. Here also we have lot of code. So this is known as what is known as, this is known as business logic. So all your business logic should go inside the custom hook. So whatever data you have, so let's create custom hook. So I will refresh here src. Here you can create custom hooks folder, and inside this I will create what is this app component. So I can say use add form, that is the use add book dot js x, no js, just js, there is no jsx here, and here I can do RFC. Now whatever code we have inside this add related, I can move it here. So data where we are using, so we are using data here, dispatch here. So let's only take this particular part and move it here. Now whatever you need, you can return this as an object. So always return object from custom hook. So this is future proof. So in future, if you want to add something more, you can easily add. So here we can, we don't need to export navigate. We just need to export add book. This is also not needed. Is error we need. So let's add is error, and we also need to add handle submit. So these two things we need to export from this particular component, use add book. Now inside it, we can use add book. You can see now the code is simplified a lot. So we just call this use add book. And here we don't need to pass data. Let's check data. Are we using any data? Data property? No. So we don't need to pass anything here. You can directly just call this particular thing, and whatever coming from that particular customer, you can get that. So from this, you are getting is error and handle submit. So you can see this is much simpler and easy to see. So the component code is lot shorter. Now let's save this and let's try to see if it works. So this is the, let me open that, start the server again. Let's go to home page. If I refresh, we have use navigate error. So we need to import use navigate, use add book mutation. Anything else we need to import? No. Let's refresh. You can see now we are correctly getting the data. Now if I try to add book test, add book, you can see this is correctly getting error. So this app component works correctly. Now let's close this and create the same for this particular list component. So list component also has a lot of business logic here. So we can move, let's check what we can move. So these books we are using here also, delete book function, use mutation. So we can move all these things. So books we need in this particular component is loading, is error message. So we can actually move everything and we can return that data. So we can move everything from here inside custom hook. So this is book list. So I can say use books list.js RFCE, and we can paste it here. So whatever we need to import this, use delete mutation. Now anything else, book handle, delete function. So from where it is coming? It's coming directly from here. So everything looks good. So here we don't need to import anything else. We just need to export. So just return something, what we need to have. Books is loading, we are using here. Is error, we are. So here we don't need to add this return statement. So in custom hook, we don't add these return statement. These will go directly inside this particular book list component. So now we need to return all these things. So is error, is loading, books, and then delete. So all these things we need to return. Is error, is loading, delete book function, and I'll delete. What other thing is delete error? Is error we are returning, is loading, books also we need to return, and I'll delete. So everything we are returning. So now I can just use this, and inside here, not here, book list, we can use that component. Use books list const Just add it here. So whatever we need, books we need, is error, delete error we are using here. Loading is also here. Delete function, we are using delete handle, delete book, where we are using handle delete, we are using delete book function. What is this delete book function? Oh, we don't need to send that back. We just need handle delete. So this is not needed. Just handle delete is needed. So that's how you can simplify this code. So we have not moved this to the custom hook because this is not a business logic. So this is rendering part should be directly in the component. So all the we are returning JSX. So custom hook don't return JSX. Custom hook you just return the object or array or individual value. So here you just add the normal use effect hook, or you can add functions that you can add. But in the rendering, whatever returning you want to return or display on the UI, it should be directly in the component itself. So let's save this and let's verify the list page. So you can see this still works. If I click on delete and cancel, it works. And let's stop the server and let's click on delete for test author. So test book, let's click on OK. You can see error while deleting the book. So this works. Let's start the server and try to delete actually. So when I click on delete, OK, you can see that is deleted. Now let's try to add a book so we can verify everything works. Final book, final author, and let's add this. And you can see this is correctly added. So that's how you can build this RTK query functionality. So let me close all of this, and here you can see delete book. Everything looks so fine. Everything looks fine here also, and API route, Redux API. So this is how you add that API. So that's how you can implement the error handling in this particular application. So let me commit these changes. So let me commit all these changes so we'll have everything working properly. Yes. Push this. So whenever you are done with something, always make sure to push this to GitHub. So if something breaks or you delete by mistake or you lose something, hard disk crashes, your code is still there. So that's it all about this particular RTK query. So we have seen everything from core Redux to Redux Toolkit and how we can use RTK query. So if you want to learn more about this RTK query, so you can go to my courses.ubisoft.dev, click on this particular lifetime subscription link. And if I search for expense manager, so you can see there is application, a course, build expense manager app using React and TypeScript. So this course is a larger course where I have explained how you can get started with React and TypeScript with React with Redux Toolkit as well as RTK Query. So if I go at the bottom, you can see there is a separate section using RTK Query, Redux Toolkit Query. So here I have explained some extra things like how you can use Axios instead of Fetch API, how you can create like code improvement, like how you can structure the code to when you are using multiple APIs. So right now we have only one API. So if I go to API.ts, here we are only working with books. So we have only books related API. But if you have multiple API, profile related API, how you can reuse the same API file across different API files. So that folder structure I have explained in organizing API. So you can go through this particular video course where you will be able to better understand how you can learn more about this particular RTK query. So whatever is there here in this particular section, I have already explained here. Only the new thing is organizing API. So that is better folder structure if you have multiple APIs, as well as you can go through code improvements and using Axios. So these three things you can go through this particular video and you will learn more about how you can use this RTK query. So if you found this particular webinar useful, do write a review on the LinkedIn, Twitter, and share your learning. So whether it's useful or not, you can also write a review or send me email with your feedback. So this will help me to reach more audience as well as to help me improve. If you have some issues, you can just let me know by sending an email. So I hope you learn a lot through this particular webinar. So we have learned everything from scratch, step by step. So this is very important. Practice makes you perfect. So write your code yourself. So this code might seem like difficult to understand. But once you start using or writing this code, you will understand where you open curly bracket, where you use query, where you use these functions. So here you can see we are using directly API's URLs. But if you are accessing using Axios, you need to convert this into an object and you need to manually specify the URL. So there are different things which you can find in this particular course using Axios instead of it. And once you start practicing this, so you will be better able to work with RTK query. So that's it for this particular webinar.